So I think the argument for a smaller chamber is just so obvious. I mean, only China has a bigger second chamber than the United Kingdom, and the argument for democratic inclusion is a strong one. There's also other suggestions have been made about a nation of the Senate and regions to look at the devolution models, how you can bring more people in from other parts of the UK, because there's such a strong London and southeast of England dominance in the House of Lords. So there's some good ideas out there, but the timid ones are by the by, really.
So the London Mayor, Sir Sadiq Khan, was one of 26 party figures, lawyers and campaigners offered a seat in the House of Lords this week. 16 of that group were nominated by Sir Keir Starmer, though the government denied this was the Prime Minister's resignation honours list, saying it had been long planned. In response to the peerages, the Electoral Reform Society wrote that yet more peers stuffed into already 700-member strong Lords will be baffling to the public, pointing out that Labour's own manifesto said 2 years ago that the second chamber of Parliament has become too big and that reform is long overdue and essential. I'm joined by Darren Hughes, the Chief Executive of the Electoral Reform Society, who's come in to talk about this issue. So, there are too many members of the House of Lords. What should be done, Darren?
I think there's 2 points here. One is the size of the chamber, and very few people think you need this many people to run an effective second chamber. And then the second issue is how people get there in the first place. And what we're saying is it should be smaller because there is a job to do, the scrutiny, the reviewing legislation, the taking the longer term view. Those are all very valid points, but you should be chosen by the public if you're making laws for the public. And we just do not need, we're back to nearly having 800 again, having just abolished the hereditary peers. So it does show that self-restraint is not really a feature in these political appointments.
Yeah, we've lost 92 hereditary peers, but I think the number appointed by Keir Starmer, which includes Tories and Lib Dems as well, is about 166.
That's about right, and we don't know whether there's more to come. There's only a couple of days to go, I guess. And the Prime Ministerships of Johnson, Truss and Sunak also appointed about 150 as well. So you can see that just in a short period of time, quite a lot of people have been added, and that's the net increase rather than just the abolition of the hereditaries, which in itself was a 25-year transition period. So this really is kind of the political industry needing a real reform here.
So there is an interim report out from a committee of the House of Lords proposing reforms. One is a retirement age at 80, and another is a 20% attendance record. Is that the kind of thing that we could do, incremental reform?
Well, I mean, that's an insult to incrementalism in terms of how slow that would be. I mean, saying, would you mind turning up for work is the sort of bold, radical reforms we're bringing forward in the summer kind of thing. I don't think that's anywhere near good enough. And I think that the age thing is quite a blunt instrument because, we try never to comment on particular individuals, but I can think of, take the immigration debate, the devolution debate, there's a couple of peers we can think of in their 90s still making valuable public
Alf
policy.
Dubs. Name him. Alf Dubs.
And I'm thinking of someone who helped regenerate Liverpool.
Michael Heseltine. Name him.
So I think when you look at that and say age would be quite blunt. The other thing too is that whenever reforms are tried, the House itself slows itself right up because so many of them don't want to leave. So if you only put up a very narrow little proposal, they'll still talk that out for a long time as well. So I think the argument for a smaller chamber is just so obvious. I mean, only China has a bigger second chamber than the United Kingdom, and the argument for democratic inclusion is a strong one. There's also other suggestions have been made about a nation of the Senate and regions to look at the devolution models, how you can bring more people in from other parts of the UK, because there's such a strong London and southeast of England dominance in the House of Lords. So there's some good ideas out there, but the timid ones are by the by, really.
And I think Andy Burnham has been very clear that he favours proportional representation. That's right, isn't it? I mean, that's a big deal, which I don't think people have picked up enough on. I mean, presumably the Electoral Reform Society is in favour of some form of change to the voting system.
Oh, absolutely, for proportional representation and for the basic principle that the number of seats a party holds should match the number of votes they got in the country, and our current system doesn't do that. I mean, I think one of the things that Keir Starmer might reflect on is that they came in with what they keep on calling a landslide majority, and no doubt it absolutely was, but it was based on 40% of the voters not showing up and only 1/3 of those who did voting for the Labour Party. So, there's a lot of arguments for why that should be the case. Andy Burnham has said things in the past before that have been positive about it. We probably do need a process over the balance of this Parliament to recognise that the electorate is far more volatile now. People are voting for many more parties, and we can't really have a 5-party or, in the nations, 6-party politics with a 2-party voting system.
And do you favour PR based on constituencies where you get a second and third vote for who your local MP is, or a list system where you vote, the national vote is translated into number of MPs?
So the proportional representation systems most used in the UK are the single transferable vote and the additional member system. Both of those have constituency elements, but there's proportionality to try and add up where there are party supporters no matter where they live to make sure they get representation. So with the first one I mentioned, you would elect a group of MPs for an area so that you would not just have to have one winner takes all, and all the people who didn't vote for that winner are effectively unrepresented politically. And then the other system is what's used in Scotland, for example, at the Parliament, where you have a mix of people elected locally, and then you get a second vote for the party you prefer so that it can be added up to make sure it's proportional to the views of the country. So those are the two systems that millions of people in the UK are familiar with, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, here in London, and they could be extended, and they have a constituency link.
And how realistic as well, on a third topic, is Andy Burnham's call for decentralisation and devolution? Is that realistic? Are there mechanisms you can use, like the tax system, to genuinely push power down to the regions? I
think there are lots of options. I think what's been, in the last 25, 30 years, there's been quite a mixed bag of devolution. So, in Wales, for example, it's moved from being an assembly to a parliament. There's talks of reforms in Northern Ireland. Scotland has taken on more powers as the years have gone on. Obviously, in England, there's been quite a wide range of mirror models. So there's a lot out there. I think what would be helpful would be to have some kind of more of a consistent approach to it, so people knew what would happen depending on where they live and whether or not those powers are appropriate. Some mayors have say over health policy in parts, for example, and others don't. Now, there might be a good argument as to why, but I think it would be better if there was a more comprehensive look. And I think one of the reasons I think Andy Burnham has changed his mind on the way he looks at politics is that 10 years he spent away from Westminster, so he knows the good parts of it, and presumably he's observed it from the other side of the table, and hopefully we'll get some exciting ideas from him about these topics.
Excellent. Well, Darren Hughes, Chief Executive of the Electoral Reform Society, thank you for coming on the show and talking about reform of the House of Lords, the possibility of PR as well as devolution. Nancy suggests that the number of peers appointed by a PM should be dependent on how long that Prime Minister has held their position. Now, if your grasp of